What's up? It's me, Alfie. You're listening to The Cool Table with Adrian.
Listening to The Cool Table.
And you're listening to The Cool Table.
You're listening to The Cool Table.
Wait, can I ask who's the superstar family?
You know what it is? You know what it ain't? This is a Superstar Family podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We had different plans of talking about some other things, but,
I have to make an emergency pivot.
Definitely pivot. I wanted to start with this quote from Kareem. That's why I put it in the note, because I feel like Kareem is someone who's had a very long history with racism in America.
Yeah.
And I feel like a quote from him especially has a lot of weight to it, and this is a great quote. He says, "Racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible even if you're choking on it. Until you let the sun in, then you see it's everywhere."
Wow. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't know. Somehow we were talking about basketball already, but I didn't know Kareem was the kind of a profound guy like that. I know Kareem was at his height in the 70s when the people say the NBA was at its most boring. Mm-hmm. And I kind of know a history about Kareem, and finding history about Kareem, I realized that he had a lot of trouble with race in America during his career. And it's something that Bill Russell talks about in his career as well.
I was about to say that.
That's kind of affected the way Dave behaves,
mm-hmm.
In their lives after basketball. But we're not here to talk about Kareem. We're here to talk about what's going on with the riots in response to the death of George Floyd. First, I want to know, what was your kind of thought when you,
and also the protest for Regis.
Yeah, protest Regis as well. We're gonna get Regis. I have a lot of things to say about Regis.
Yeah.
What did you think when you first saw that video of George, and just what kind of happened right after that?
Well, first thing I thought was this is something that we see far too often, man. I can't name how many viral videos I've seen of arrests or of someone losing their life being arrested, from the police. You see what I'm saying? I think it was 2014 when Eric Garner said that I can't breathe, and that whole campaign had gone on, and man, February 26, 2012, that's when this whole thing really, I think, turned up a whole notch. If anyone doesn't know what that date is, that's when Trayvon Martin died. Mm-hmm. That was 8 years ago, man. That's pretty much a decade. So when people tell me, all lives matter, I completely agree. But this isn't all lives matter conversation. This is a Black Lives Matter conversation. And to be honest, we've been the victim for a long, long, long time now. But over the last, I would say 8 years, since 10 years or so, decade, since, I would say the technology kind of has caught up with people pulling out phones and actually recording it and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
this is just something that needs to change.
Yeah, definitely. And the saying that this all started on February 26th in 2012 with Trayvon is so important in this sense that, no offense to George and his family, but George is not an anomaly in any way in what we've been seeing for all this time. The same week that last week, the same couple of days when that video came out with George, I saw another video of a kid getting killed in his car, and he was stepping out of the car before.
Yeah, and he was there, and he had his hands up. I saw that video.
And those two videos were simultaneous, and to me, the video of that kid getting shot was more perfect to me than what happened to George. But this is not. It's just that, I guess the George video is more defiant, because that video is such a long video. You see the entire thing unfold, so to speak, in terms of him having his.
And people knew George. In terms of people of higher power. I think Stephen Jackson knows him, for example.
Yeah, no, he don't. He was. I know he was known. He was known in that community. Yeah, he was known in that community.
Yeah.
And it's like, for it to be George that causes this whole thing. I'm happy that this is getting this attention now, but George is not an anomaly in any way, and that's, I guess, the problem with this whole thing. The riots, I guess, I maybe underestimated Americans or young Black Americans in terms of the rioting happening, and because this has happened so many times with a young Black man dying by the police. I don't assume it's going to be a riot every time something happens. True. So, as soon as they said that riots were happening the next day and I saw the police station burn down and all that, I knew that it was about to get very serious very quickly. But I didn't assume that riots were going to happen when people started posting about George. Did you guess that would happen? Are you assuming that?
I didn't assume riots were going to happen. Once I saw, like kind of caught wind, I think, a little bit, like you said, like I think it was a day before the rioting had started. That there was going to be riots, like I assumed it was going to happen. At that point I was like, oh, all right, well, yeah, this is what to happen.
It's going down.
I was just concerned more so about like I think we were talking about earlier, just like it not being the local businesses. I think like what we've been seeing on the news and stuff like that. Well, from what I've been seeing on the news anyway, for sure, it has been more of like people coming into like Atlanta or like going to well, I guess New York a little bit already has their own rights and stuff like that going on, but I was thinking of Minneapolis, people going there and stuff like that.
Going to Minneapolis to riot.
Yeah, to riot. Mm-hmm. And I think like those have been more like the looters and stuff like that, more of like the people that have actually been like damaging kind of the city. Mm-hmm. And stuff like that, which, look, I'm not like an advocate for violence, although I'm not going to sit there and say like I don't understand this one for sure. Like I understand the writing, and I understand like why at this point it needs to get to a kind of like honestly a violent point, like to be honest, and I can see why. Having said that, just leave the local shops alone, man. Like leave the ones that the people that live there in the community, leave those ones alone. Like leave the local bar, like the guy, the Black owner that owns like that corner, I don't know, place serving the nice chicken that you love, getting every Friday. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you'd hope for that. You'd hope for that.
Yeah, like go Target. Mm-hmm. Go Target. Like a Walmart or something. Go Target. I'm sorry, I'm not saying like those guys don't suffer as well, but it's definitely not the same. So
no, and that's like I saw some clips the day after the first night where there were some Black men in front of some businesses asking people to not go inside, not to riot, not to loot.
Yeah,
and I think that speaks to what you're saying. It's like a lot of these, like, what do you call it, protesters, looters, rioters, whatever word you want to use, a lot of them are destroying their own communities. And like the other night I was watching Atlanta's protest on TV, and once it was past curfew, a lot of people stayed outside. A lot of the families and older people went home, but young people stayed. And there was a bunch of clips afterwards of the mayor of Atlanta being so hurt. I saw Killer Mike crying in his piece, talking about what's going on. T.I. super upset as well. And I the pain that these people of power in Atlanta feel from what's going on, I do understand that. Because again, like the building that they destroyed, that CNN center. Luckily, I've actually been to that center, but I know how special that is to Atlanta, specifically that center. That's the headquarters for CNN. Before that, it was the largest indoor water park in the world. So I can imagine the pride. Think of any huge landmark in Toronto we have that fits that description. I can imagine, that you're from this city, you live in this city, and you're just building so special to this city.
Leave the local standing things there alone. That's exactly what.
Yeah.
So
And
the
part that I guess is rough is like that. What you're saying is what's not happening. It's kind of the problem. It's like we're not seeing that. We are seeing people destroy their own communities. We're not seeing people being selective or targeted.
Definitely not seeing any sort of discipline or anything. No.
Yeah, we're seeing people destroy their own communities, which is extremely rough. When I was watching one of the newscasts, they were showing New York and showing that a lot of the New York police are not wearing helmets because it sets a tone that people think that it will get more violent if they show up in helmets and shields. So
Yep.
they're trying to show up, as plain as they can, so to speak, just so that people are not assuming that violence will be what comes next. And on the other side of that, I've seen a couple clips of cops throwing up some white supremacist gang signs. I didn't know these existed.
Yep.
But I'm seeing them throw that up as well. And that's the next thing that I wanted to kind of talk about. That this is the one of the main things that's really irking me about this whole thing is Will Smith posted this thing that said, racism isn't new. We just have phones now. That was
exactly.
Where it's getting filmed. And he's super right about that, but you're seeing that in the behavior of a lot of these like people in their own neighborhoods, just how they're behaving with people in their own neighborhoods, and these cops as well, that for you not to feel any shame within yourself to behave in a certain way as a white man, as a man in general, but as a white man, as a police officer, seeing that there's no shame left in overt racism is I guess the difference in I think this time than other times in the past. From what I've seen, is that it seems like it's reached a bubbling point that the overt racism the shame in that has kind of disappeared, so to speak, for people who truly believe that. When Trayvon was first killed, that was when Obama was still in office. That was a time when people thought, okay, Obama's in office, maybe something could happen, maybe we're closer to getting to a positive place. Now with basically the opposite circumstance, I don't think that same positivity is there. But the people who kind of side with someone like Trump and have no problem with the racism, they have not gone anywhere. This past 8 years, 10 years, 300 years of treatment towards Black people hasn't changed their perspective in any way. And I think that's what has to be kind of seen, is that we're not seeing, maybe it's just me, but I'm not seeing as many people that are kind of changing their view or being like, my mom thought this way 10 years ago. Now she's understanding. We're seeing a lot of the people who feel the way they feel, who are not allies of us, still feeling that way. That nothing is happening that's changing that.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, that's more of what I've felt and have seen, like just from the time I lived in the States, I think for for 2 years when I was there. And as well, just from what I've seen, and experienced, it's not one of those things, I think, where it's more overt now, to be honest, to me anyway. I think it's been overt always. I think Will Smith is just completely correct that it's just now one of those things where people have a phone to record it now, so we're not seeing it. That's why the feelings aren't changing. That's why you're not seeing that consistency in changing feelings and stuff like that, or anyone jumping from one side of the fence to the other, because it's always been that way. It's like concrete. You know what I mean? It's
Facts.
Just it's something that's just been piled on, and it's not gonna change. So man, that it's just sad now. I guess where we are, we're starting a better place overall, I think, to be honest with you, in terms of racism and all that. But it's obviously still an issue, and I don't think it's ever gonna not be an issue. That's kind of my thing. I don't think it's ever gonna not be an issue. I think we're fighting a battle that, yeah, that's unbeatable in some ways.
I can hear the hopelessness.
It's sad.
I can see it and I can hear it in your voice, but it's again, it's what do we even know that this will ever not be an issue? And it's crazy for us to feel like that, but I always think that if we, with all the advancements, and especially with Black culture being the driving force when it comes to culture in America, and if not the world, Black culture being the driving force when it comes to culture, is for us to feel like this may be an ongoing issue forever. How much white people feel knowing that so little has changed. Do white people feel the same way, and are kind of hopeful for us, but they themselves don't know if things will ever change, because those white people are the ones who have those family members, have those friends who are the ones who feel that way. So well, obviously we're going to have to ask a white person to find out the answer to this and see if that's a thing that's they feel as well. But do they just feel, even the ones who like do or don't want to help us on either side, is it just a thing where everyone feels like this will always be the way it is? I certainly hope not, and I want to move something positive, because I can just, the energy right now, I just feel like it's tough, because there's
I agree.
no guarantee of anything getting better. George Floyd has a memorial fund, a GoFundMe page. Their goal was $1.5 million. Right now they're at $5,410,000. So that's great to see everyone kind of putting their money where their mouth is, in terms of standing behind the cause.
That's great.
Seeing what can be done. In terms
and,
of
sorry, I just want to say how interesting this is as well. Like, this all happening in the midst of a global pandemic. Like I'm like, as well, just to pay respects to social distancing. Here in Toronto, we had like a protest for Regis, and I think that was done well overall. To be honest with you, like it was peaceful. I don't think it was definitely nothing like it was in the States. I live actually like 3 blocks, I think, from where the march was, and I couldn't even hear it from here. So I don't think it was one of the louder marches, and stuff like that as well. Like, they're probably doing their thing, but I'm just saying it wasn't like a, I don't know, super out of control scene over there. Having said that, I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, this is still a global pandemic, and people still do gotta social distance and pay respects, like in terms of and wear masks, take the proper precautions and stuff like that. I think
it's so nuts. Sorry, go ahead.
It is nuts. I was just thinking to myself, like, they should probably just do some sort of like rotation thing. And that sounds kind of funny, but like a rotation thing in terms of, let's say, because they brought in the circles that they had in New York in Trinity Bellwood. So they have those same circles there now. And if you can't like fit into, like, if you're not, the circles are filled essentially, and the park is filled and you got to go home. Like, there's no, like, you can't like just be like lingering around there. I think they should kind of go by those numbers. So kind of fill the circles and leave in like half an hour, like, increments. And so you have a sustained longer march. Some social distancing involved, and
that's very, very
I think that would actually work, and that'd be a great idea. But
no, that's a great idea. I rock with that. I rock with that.
Because of the global pandemic, it makes me a little bit nervous just seeing all this many people outside and just clamored a little bit together. I know people are trying to stay apart, but we all, like, I'm seeing the images. I walked outside to go grab some stuff. It's not that. Like, people are definitely, side by side.
It's worrisome, because I already was worried when they kind of opened up more stores that everyone's just going outside doing their thing now, just so to speak. Like, I'm seeing people say that they haven't changed anything in their life at all since this whole thing started. And I said that's wild. But the other thing on top of that is I produced a piece about social distancing, the history of it, a few months back, and there's a part of that piece where they said that in Philly they held a protest for a lot of men going to war, and after that protest, promptly thousands of people died in the city, and that's the first thing I thought of when I saw these protests happening all over America. Even the one in Toronto is, about 100 years ago, another global pandemic, protests happened like they're happening now. And, within weeks, thousands of people were dead in the cities that protested. And, to me, I feel like there's almost some kind of allowance of these protests happening. Obviously, everyone has their civil right to protest peacefully. But
at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. At the end of the day, I think it's a good thing.
No, I do think it's a good thing, but I just feel like social distancing is
Needed.
put so far in the rear
Yeah.
that it's like, think about the people that are protesting are people that we need as allies going forward to really make a real change. And if the families of those people protesting are the ones that are going to be affected by this, that's not what I want to see. So that is what worries me about this whole thing, is that the families of the people protesting are the people that we need. That kid who's protesting, and his parents need to be alive and well to help pay for the rent or the mortgage where that kid lives, so we continue to protest. So that's something that I'm kind of holding my breath for, hoping that's not how it goes down. But you're right, it's crazy that global pandemic is basically on hold. Someone posted a picture on Instagram, and the caption was, "I know it's a global pandemic, but I want to go back outside." And I was like, somehow this seems out of place.
I think to be okay. Look, and that's like another like side conversation that I feel like well, I've had definitely.
Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
But, like, I guess like this being like a chance for people to get outside, release some pent up energy, because this is amidst a global pandemic where we have been forced to be inside and away from others, and away from our normal lives, away from a lot of stuff. Now we have the opportunity to get outside, say our views, see people, do all kinds of stuff, interact, all kinds of things that we weren't allowed to do for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month, 2 months for some of us, So, yeah, I think that is a little bit of a conversation I have in terms of is this all genuine people that are out here for the support, or is this somehow mixed a little bit with some of the people that are just looking to get outside and be amidst people and sun and walk?
I very much think that's part of it, because that's what I was saying with George Floyd not being an anomaly. That's what I was thinking, as well as everyone's already home and kind of weaponized to just go outside. When you're home for so long, anything to get outside, you're going outside. So I kind of feel like exactly what you're saying. It's a mix of that and a mix of people actually protesting. Because here's what I would say. I think these protests are well attended for the most part, despite it being a global pandemic, because obviously a lot of people are not working. A lot of people have been home for days, months. I don't know that a lot of these people would take half a day off work to go protest, or take the day off at work to go protest, or leave from where they were in another circumstance to go protest. So you're exactly right on that. Again, there is a global pandemic going on. Is this odd that's totally gone to the wayside? Now, one more thing before we talk about Regis, because I got some stuff to say about Regis and her case. The overnight online activists.
That's from the overnight online activists.
The overnight online activists.
Explain and then carry on.
It's self-explanatory there, but the overnight online activists are the people that their story now has 20 posts all about the cause and Black Lives Matter, and they got all the comments. And here's what I was saying to my brother earlier, is that this energy that everyone has now to post, some people I know it's real, as in some people who are not Black posting this. I know that some of that is real, and I know some of it is not. But whether it's real or not, and you just don't want to be not inclusive, and that's why you're doing this, we need that inclusive energy that keeps Black men alive.
Exactly. That's what I was going to point out. And that's what I was going to point out for the previous conversation as well, in terms of the protests. Whether you're out there for the dandelions and the sunlight, or you're actually out there for Regis, or you're actually out there for George, there is still strength in numbers. So appreciation should still be there.
And keep that same energy, because
keep that same energy. Exactly.
We're at a time in 2020 where no one is, at least professionally, and definitely not, publicly using words like faggot and retarded. And how those things came about was that energy, from however young you were, whether it was your teacher or your coach or someone's parent, saying don't say those things. The things are not to be said. They're not to be said.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is kind of my problem with the online overnight activists, is because it's not like the world, Americans, white people don't have the capability of bringing that energy, because y'all brought that energy when it was time for people to stop using words like retarded or faggot, or for everyone to become inclusive of someone who's trans. And
true.
The crazy thing about the online, I guess, activists, is, obviously it's out of control at this point, where people are talking about noticing who's not posting. And it's like, if you don't post in the first place, what do you do? Like, some people feel that pressure is in, like, I gotta post something.
I have to post because everyone else posted.
Yeah, and that is the opposite of what we want. That is the opposite of what we want. We want this to be real and genuine, and we want real allies, in the field, professionally, socially, politically. That's where we need the real allies to be, not online overnight activists. That's not what we need. But
I hate them.
No,
look, and I actually share your disdain for them, for sure. I agree. Having said that, like I said, there's strength in numbers. There's 20 more online activists that get forced over that weren't previously there. In each friend group circle,
a little peer pressure goes a long way.
It budges the needle. And
that was my next point before we talk about Regis, is like, that goes in with the white silence, and the strength in numbers that you're talking about, that budges the needle. The little peer pressure goes a long way. That is helpful, but the white silence is not helpful, and
definitely not helpful.
And I'll say this: like, white people are for the most part oblivious to their whiteness, and by that I mean they're unaware
and their white privilege.
They're unaware of their white privilege. They're unaware of the difference in their life to someone who's of color, and a lot of the issues don't pertain to them. They might not be a single black man in their life. Realistically, they may work with black men. They may be acquaintances of black men, but there's not a black man in their life that they can say this could have happened to him. So for the most part, they are just oblivious. But again, the numbers are important. So even if it's just the peer pressure that's getting to you, I appreciate that over the white silence. So you're right. The strength in numbers we need, and that fake ass post could be a push that starts a conversation that changes someone's mind. So that's exactly what we need.
We'll take it. That's all I'll say.
We'll take it. Regis is a 29-year-old woman from Toronto. Pronouncing her last name is a chore and a half, so I'm not even gonna.
Yeah, that's why for the record, I've only been saying Regis this entire pod.
Yeah. Her last name is impossible, but her story became, I guess, hip to us from a video from, I think it was her cousin or her brother.
Yeah.
The evening that she died. She died about 5 p.m. This video came out around, I think, 6-7ish.
Yeah.
And in this video, her cousin brother says that the cops pushed her off the balcony. Again, the cops were not wearing body cams. It was only the cops and herself in the room when it happened. Her mother was on the other side of the door. The place where they were was actually a place that her mother, brother, and her lived together. So the three of them all lived there. Her mother was asking the cops to take her to Camp H. She had some issues with mental illness.
Yeah.
It's all fishy because since then, there's been 3 witnesses who have said they saw her get pushed off the balcony. To me, from seeing apartments, I don't even know how you could technically see that so clearly. It's possible, but these witnesses are kind of taking too long to come forward for me. At the same time, there's no part of me that trusts police and what they have to say.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're the only ones that know what truly happened. So
that's true.
I'm waiting for the report to come out from the investigation unit to see what they say. Whatever they find conclusive doesn't mean I'm going to agree with that, but I want to see the full report on what they say happened prior to her falling and what was the cause of her falling. So
I agree with that. I think it's a twofold thing here, though. I think it's a matter of, like, one, Toronto needs to have body cams the Toronto police need to get the body cams like
100%.
update. I don't understand how it's been like not updated, or like I understand there's like some sort of financial thing or whatever problem because it costs a lot of money. I understand for the rollout. I think that's what the police general said the other day. And I was just look, don't want to hear it, get it out. Like you take our tax amount is crazy. Okay, I don't want to talk about a tax amount. It's outrageous. I'm just gonna say that.
Figure it out.
Okay, figure it out. From the dollars that you're taking for the taxes, figure it out. Secondfold, if they're close enough, I don't know what the training is, and this actually I think even bleeds down to the George situation as well. There needs to be a reform clearly in police training. There needs to be a reform in it when it comes to arresting an individual. There needs to be a reform in it arresting somebody that seems like they could be harming themselves or about to harm themselves, or just in general, like what like they need to restructure this. They need to figure out where the gap is here, whether it's a personnel problem or a technique problem, and figure that out. Because if they're close enough to hold this woman or like be in arm's reach of this woman before she jumps off herself, if they're going to proclaim, or to, you see what I'm saying, push her off themselves, you're in arm's reach. It's too fishy here.
Yeah, it's so,
you got the background personnel of her having the mental issues and stuff like that. I'm sure they knew it before they got onto the scene.
No, they knew.
Okay.
Yeah, in the like report that's not out yet. I know someone who called Toronto police, and I heard a bit of the phone call they recorded, and they said that they did know that she had before they got there. It's the whole thing is fishy, especially because to me I don't understand why there's no reason for her to one, jump off. Like maybe she felt that's what she needed to do was jump off, so that's I guess a lot of people are assuming. But at the same time, I like for the cops to do that makes no sense to me as well. As much as I don't trust them, that doesn't make sense for them to do that. That's a different level of evil, especially because her mother was on the other side of the door. That's what I always have to remember. Her mother's on the other side of the door. Her mother said she heard her screaming for her name before she died, and the family has not been in the apartment since.
Wow.
So those are some of the things where you have to question what in the world is going on here. But
see, we don't know what happened. That's all you have to say. You don't know what happened. Maybe one of the cops are pushing to a situation where like not in terms like of him or her trying to push her off on purpose, like just shoving her off. Maybe it was one of those where they were trying to catch her, or things got aggressive, and who knows? Who the heck knows? Actually, I have no idea. I can make anything up, but we just got to see when the report comes out, I guess, like you said, and kind of go from there, man. That's the only kind of way to go. But it is fishy. It is
fishy.
That's why there's a
her
protest.
GoFundMe is doing well as well.
Okay, what are the numbers?
Her goal is 100,000. They're at 226,740. So they're gonna get close to 227,000 soon. I like to see this support, of the Black people in a financial way. Obviously, that doesn't fix what's happening, and it doesn't erase what's going on. But I just like to see that it is adding up, at least in that way. From all the stuff we're seeing online, people posting, and the online overnight activists, to see that energy is kind of matching up in terms of the dollars that's going towards these families.
Yeah,
I at least that's a positive. I can say we're headed in the right direction in that way. We talked about the protests in Toronto. I didn't end up going to it yesterday. We talked about it a little bit earlier, saying it wasn't that loud. It was pretty peaceful. I thought it was interesting that the protests in Toronto happened so quickly. I guess it's the tension of the times. We have CNN up here, we have internet up here, so we see what's going on in America. But, I just find it so. I guess it's so presumptuous, is what I'm saying. Because again, at this point in the case, we don't know for a fact what happened. we obviously we know that we would like the cops to wear body cams. We would like to have some trust in that what they're saying is correct. And the fact that the family is, well, the lawyer kind of detracted what he said, but some parts of the family are certain that she was murdered. I find it interesting that was enough for the streets to be full in Toronto, people with their signs, justice for Regis. When again, there is no.
It's definitely not as conclusive as the George Floyd case.
Not conclusive.
Yeah.
And the fact that the streets were full and everyone's quick to go out, I think just it shows the mistrust for the government and the police that runs deep in Toronto and Canada as well. I think that's what's evident to me is that in the George Floyd case, it's a video that went viral. We all saw it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question of what happened there.
Yeah.
With this case, this is a whole ton of hearsay. Obviously there are people in the family who are sure of it, but with all the evidence we've been presented, there's things on both sides that could lead you to believe that it was not a murder. Obviously our mistrust for cops would lead us to believe otherwise, but again, it not being conclusive and having the streets filled with that huge amount of people. Those pictures that I saw, a bunch of people downtown, a mixed crowd of young people. All for Regis. That was just kind of amazing to me to see that. That's how deep the mistrust lies with our people and the kind of mobilization that happened so quickly.
I agree, man. I agree. I mean, I think I guess like the final kind of portion here, we're just kind of figuring out what we should do moving forward. Like, what are some changes that actually make sense in terms of like society, us as individuals, and even like on the police side of things, like what are some things that they can possibly try and fix to try and mend some of this stuff here.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is minimum sentencing for killing someone who's unarmed. That in so many cases, going back years and years, to so many of these cases, the cops getting off on a bunch of different legal technicalities. Every case they find something different. What I would love there to be a minimum sentencing. If you're a cop and you kill someone who is unarmed, not resisting arrest, not just not doing anything, regardless of whatever else happens. If you are responsible for someone's death in that case, minimum 25, and proving reasonable doubt, and the rest of it can be in terms of life or parole or death row, depending on the state. But those, I think it's like that to me would be the first, I guess, sign that something's happening. Minimum sentencing. If a cop kills someone who is unarmed and not resisting, regardless of the context, if you kill someone in that case, minimum 25 years.
Yeah.
Whatever the context can determine whether you have parole or not, and the rest of it. But that to me is what it has to be, because watching the press conference of, I guess, was a prosecutor talking about the officer that they arrested, and they've never moved the case this fast. This happened on Monday, and he was arrested on Thursday, and on Friday they're speaking to us about it. For him to say that they haven't had a case move this fast is almost like mind-boggling to me, because this is not the first time that there's been a case that has been so conclusive when it comes to the evidence of what happened. It's if George Floyd had been the name of a golden retriever, I'm telling you, these 4 dudes would have been assassinated. It would have been bloodshed over with. And the fact that it took all this pressure to get this one guy arrested, and to me, the other 3 officers who are holding him down, as well as the officer who's just standing there, all of them should be prosecuted. And again,
I agree.
I think that to me, that's the first thing that has to be done, is that minimum sentencing for officers. But the other thing I think is having real allies in the government. To me, the government has created this system that where for cops not to feel fear in killing a black man is it's crazy, because I'm sure like cops probably feel fear about sexually assaulting a woman, or roughing up a white man, or misjudging a child. But killing a black man, there isn't that same fear in doing that. You know, we've seen the clips of cops saying we only kill black men. We've seen clips of cops making jokes about it, and you know, for black men to be the ones on the radar, the ones who are exempt from that, you know, respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a systematic thing that there needs to be, you know, some legal things put in place from the government that cops who do that is, you know, automatic termination, automatic sentencing.
I like that though. I like the minimum 25 unarmed sentencing there. That makes a lot of sense. I think a consequence that like suits, you know,
suits a crime.
Suits a crime.
Yeah,
You know,
cops are not worried.
That's some sort of fear.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is like for the people like us on the ground, so to speak, who are living this every day, I think that we need to keep that energy every day. And as black people, like we need to just not be apologetic about any part of our blackness. I just think that those days have to be done, and whatever blackness that you know that you exhibit, whether it's wearing your do-rag or wearing your hair a certain way or talking a certain way, you know, just be excellent in what you do. Obviously, you know, I'm not saying you to be a bum, but be excellent in what you do. But there's no reason to be apologetic in your blackness. White people have not had any type of, you know, apologeticness for us and how we behave. You know, and there's not really any track record of it. They're not, you know, going out of their way to that we feel comfortable. You know, black people, we go out of our way to make other races feel comfortable, and you know it really doesn't add up. There's not that going the other way. You know, that's not existing. So I just want to urge all black people that, you know, there's no reason to be apologetic about any part of your blackness. No one is doing what they can to make you comfortable, so there's no reason for you to do that for anybody else.
Yeah, no, man, I completely agree. I couldn't have said that any better. I really, but I think like the couple things I could probably add on was like, number one, for Toronto, we definitely gotta like get the body cams going for our police.
Facts.
That needs to be something that needs to be done like ASAP. In the States, I think there just needs like, I mean, number one, that sentencing thing, that's great. I think right off the bat probably is like just an actual structure for arresting. Like, I'm tired of hearing, for example, like even just not hearing, seeing actually the knee on the neck type of whatever that he died from, or Eric Gardner back in like New York, states away, getting arrested in some next fashion, and in a way in which you can't breathe. You know what I mean? So look, like there needs to be definitely a change in reform in like how you're arresting somebody and how you're like detaining somebody, whether it's a 2-person thing rather than it being a 1-person thing or a 3 or 4-person thing. Like whether it's an increase in numbers and you're figuring that out, or you know, the technique is different. Something has to change in that sense.
All right, before you go ahead, I like that one a lot because I feel like, aside from the fact that murdering someone is not protocol, the way that they're handling these people
is ridiculous.
Even before they murder them, or if they don't murder them, it's not protocol. And I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Exactly.
Is, you the way that a lot of these officers get off is they explain what they were thinking and saying, I was scared, I was worried, so I did this. And there needs to be a training that says, if you're scared and worried, this is not what you do.
Exactly.
And that
is true.
Yeah, I just want to
make you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to be scared and worried. We're not saying you're not allowed to be human. But having said that, if you're not allowed to put your emotions aside in a moment of pressure, maybe just isn't your job. You know, I'm just saying. Like, maybe there might be some other jobs out there for you. And then what was the other thing I think we were saying? Like, just I guess in terms of like us individually, you know, we gotta, I think number one, we gotta keep our phones out always in interaction with the police. Um, but the other thing too is like, man, there needs to be a better system in terms of, I don't know, like something. We gotta do something other than recording. Like, God damn it! Like, it does kill me to see that we are recording, like somebody dying. You know what I mean? Like, it does. Like,
Agreed.
why is there not further action that can be taken? You know, you're just
Mhm.
you do feel that way, and look,
You know what I.
I'm not saying bash police or jump police while they're trying to arrest a guy or anything like
But do
that.
something. I feel you. I feel you.
But yeah, there has to be something done. I don't know.
The thing that I thought of the last couple of days, and this is definitely because I'm a Ryerson graduate, and Ryerson is probably the most inclusive school on the planet. But the inclusive crowd, I guess, weaponizes that, and I think that we should weaponize our blackness in that same way. I know, for a long time, even so today, when women are mistreated in the workplace, it is kind of customary just to maybe tell one person, not tell the authority, not make a thing about it. And I know when things happen that make you uncomfortable in the workplace that regard to race in that same way, I know that we are not necessarily trained and taught to speak about those things. So I would say weaponize our blackness. If there is a moment, in your world where you feel, that you're not being treated fairly, or, just not being treated the way you should be treated, I feel like that something that we should speak up more about and not feel, I guess, insecure to do so, because I don't see that as often where, someone of color is kind of ostracized and they feel comfortable, to say why it is they feel that way, what's going on, tell the person of authority, tell, their supervisor, their manager, because again, a lot of this is rough to say, but I'm not American, so let me say that before I say this, but America is not a country of integrity necessarily at this point. Things are there are people who feel strongly about the things that they do feel, and they speak about those, but it is a lot of doing things as to not have backlash come towards you, or to not upset this group of people, or to not upset that group of people. There isn't as many people doing things that they would do if there was no cameras or behind closed doors, or that they would do if nobody was watching. And I think that is what we have to kind of put at the forefront. If you're treated badly at your workplace or your school or whatever it is, and you speak up and say, there's some racialized comments going around, you'll see quickly which supervisors or coordinators will take that into account and do something about it, or which of those will say that's just how it goes. And I think that we have to kind of put the pressure on those people in power to say, will you stand for this? Are you saying that, somewhere where you are in charge, it's okay to treat people like this? Because I think that all the other groups definitely have no problem doing that. If a white gay male is being, bastard with homophobic comments, that will not be allowed in that workplace. Most workplaces will not allow that. And I think that should be the same for people of color. So that's what we can do on the ground, I think, is weaponize our blackness to not let those things go. Because a lot of times we'll just, let it pass, go home, talk to the homies. That was crazy. And that's the end of it, and I think we have to put the people in power in your life, in that awkward position, and so that they can let I will stand for this, or I will not stand for this. It's like, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much what you're saying is just start holding people around us more accountable.
All the way accountable. 100%.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to add? I feel like we are all.
It's just I mean, nothing really, man. It's just a little sad. That's all. Like,
Yeah.
It's just sad. That's it, man. It's like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Same. Yeah.
I'm speechless at this point. Like, I've said so much for the last God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of words at this point.
Here's what I'll say to anyone who hears this: keep that same energy, please, 24/7. I want that energy on New Year's if a black girl's getting yelled at in the line in the cold, I want the energy at the 4th of July. I want that energy on Valentine's Day. I want this energy all year round, every day. And I don't want us to have this same podcast 8 years from now. 2028, I do not want to do this again. I can't guarantee that it won't, but I definitely don't want to do this again in 2028. Let me say that.
The sad part is there's too many lives that have been lost between Trayvon and George Floyd in these 8 years, man. I just don't want us to have another Black Lives Matter hashtag post, all this stuff again. Like this is.
Yeah.
Why am I having to remind? How are people having to remind the world in 2020? Remind the world that Black Lives Matter. That's why I need people to actually wonder.
Yeah, I think that's a great place for us to sign off, because that's all you're gonna see after you listen to this. This has been an episode of Superstar Family Podcast. Again, OJM94 on Twitter. If you want to send in your questions, your comments, please leave us a rating on iTunes, on Spotify. Please subscribe. Please share this episode with your friends. Anyone who needs a good stern talking to.
Push conversation.
Yeah, if you know someone who needs two black men to yell at them, send them this podcast. Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at The Cool Table Live. But stay safe out there until next time.
Love.